Let me adjust it, and that's it. Yes. Okay. So I will be talking about the SGLT2 inhibitors and GLP-1 receptor agonists, this synergistic combination. So here, in the era of modern diabetology and cardiology, we have two set of medicines like SGLT2 inhibitor and GLP-1 receptor agonist. Both are very good cardio-renal protective agents. So let's see whether using them together is going to help in a particular patient or not. So uh, see this picture. This is an apple tree in front of the physics department, and this is a picture of satellite. And can you relate these two pictures? The key is the Sir Isaac Newton ideas. So the apple tree and the idea is linked together, and ideas can change life. And you can see the combination can also change life. Like the combination of a two good drug can change a miserable life of patient into a very good lifestyle. So that is one thing. So in next 20 minutes, I will be talking about the epidemiology of the type 2 diabetes, the physiology, pathophysiological mechanism of renoprotective nature of GLP-1 receptor agonist and SGLT2 inhibitor, and why the synergistic combination are being thought in clinical practice, and what are different clinical evidences we have till date. So in the management of type 2 diabetes has shifted from glucocentric approach to the holocentric approach. And in this approach, the aim of treatment is not only to normalize blood glucose, to normalize body weight, BP, stabilize EGFR without causing hypoglycemia. And believe me, the SGLT2 inhibitor and GLP-1 receptor agonist, they are both have capability to do so. And if you see the management in day-to-day diabetic clinic practice, it is miserable. And even in spite of all these advancement which is happening uh, in the recent past, only 50% of the patient is going to achieve the HbA1c less than 7. So that is the reality. So we have to improve this. So how we can improve this? By using a better set of medicine which are having complementary in nature. The drugs should be safe, durable, well tolerated, easy to administer, and cost effective. So all these are the property of the anti diabetic agent. And as GLP-1 receptor agonist can be a very important drug in this regard. As you can see, the GLP-1 receptor, to understand this, we have to understand the physiology of GLP-1 receptor agonist. And if you see, the GLP-1 is secreted from the L cell of the intestine. And contrary to the belief that only carbohydrate is going to stimulate the L cell, there is stimulation from the electrolyte, lipids, protein, and from the bile acid and from the short chain fatty acid. All they act as a stimulant for the L cell, and the GLP-1 is secreted. And once the GLP-1 is secreted, it is acting through endocrine pathway, the paracrine pathway, and a neuroendocrine pathway. That is a very important thing, that GLP-1 is acting as a neurohormone also. So it sends signal through vagus nerve. So this is important. Not only this, the GLP-1, once it is secreted, it is acting on various organ of the body like brain, heart, liver, to cause favorable effect in diabetes. And if you can see this diagram, there are multiple pathophysiological abnormality in diabetes, like brain is having abnormality, liver is having abnormality, the kidney, the fat, the muscles, the gut, pancreas, the alpha and beta cells both. So all these are pathophysiological abnormality in case of type 2 diabetes, and GLP-1 receptor is capable of reversing almost each and every abnormality present in diabetes. So multifaceted disease, multifaceted intervention. Not only this, the GLP-1 receptor is also having some pleiotropic effect, like it can correct BNP, HSCRP, PI1. But most important thing is it is anti-inflammatory at vascular endothelium. And this anti-inflammatory effect is mainly via gut microbiota. So this is important. So it is very important to understand that GLP-1 receptor agonists are the agents which can reduce the organ inflammation, like different major organ like heart, brain, pancreas, adipocyte, kidney. So as a whole, they are actually anti-inflammatory at different pathophysiological uh, abnormality at the tissue and organ level, and they modify the inflammatory cytokine. This is very important concept which is building up. And in case of heart, the GLP-1 receptors are present both in endothelium at the right atrium, and where via ANP it causes various favorable effect in case of diabetes, while uh, uh, on acting through vascular endothelial receptor, actually it causes anti-atherosclerotic property. So it is mainly atherosclerotic, and with the more and more evidence which are coming up with the GLP-1 receptor knockout mice, it is now clear that predominant action uh, in terms of cardioprotection is being delivered at endothelial level. So probably the heart GLP-1 receptor uh, are not that much important, and the indirect effect through ANP is the probably minor effect. The major effect is the direct action of GLP-1 receptor agonist on the endothelium. Though it has been discovered that through ANP it can affect various organs, and it can affect the adipocyte biology in a favorable manner. But this is a minor set of action. So summarizing all, in terms of cardiovascular effect, it has got anti-atherosclerotic property, reduction of blood pressure, endothelial dysfunction, cardiac uh, dysfunction, and reversal of cardiac ischemia. In terms of metabolic effect, it reduces blood glucose, reduces body weight, ectopic fat is reduced, the lipid profile, they have favorable effect, and albuminuria is reduced. Not only this, this has got kidney protection, protecting effect properties also, and it is directly kidney protecting agent. And by a direct GLP-1 receptor agonist present on the kidney, it acts as an anti-inflammatory molecule. Not only this, if you combine this molecule with the neprilysin inhibitor, so if you are combining GLP-1 receptor agonist with the neprilysin inhibitor, probably the effect is augmented. So this is a very, very important point which is coming up, that the combination of another very important drug can be a beneficial. Not only this, if you are giving GLP-1 receptor agonist to the patient is able to excrete sodium more efficiently. So this is a sort of incretin effect of sodium excretion. So this is a very good diagram which is taken from the Nature's Review Nephrology. So if your patient is on GLP-1 receptor agonist, probably there will be more nitriuresis, and there will be less renin-angiotensin system activation. So not only this, the renoprotective properties also uh, there with the help of weight loss, the fat reduced distribution, anti-atherosclerotic property, blood pressure reduction. So all these renal inflammation and other pleiotropic effect, there is a renoprotection. And if you summarize all these renoprotective property, you can summarize this into mainly four part, and the center of the all these renoprotective properties, reduction of intraglomerular hypertension. And how this reduction of intraglomerular hypertension take place? By the generation of endothelial nitric oxide, by the inhibition of renin-angiotensin system, by the inhibition of endothelin receptor. So contrary to the SGLT2 inhibitor, it is acting on both afferent and efferent arteriole to reduce the intraglomerular hypertension. And if you are combining this with the RAS inhibitor like ARB, there can be more beneficial effect. So probably the GLP-1 receptor agonists are also renoprotective. So if you combine all the uh, kidney protective mechanism, this is the table. Here is the direct effect and the indirect effect. But the main effect is reduction of albuminuria. So it is mainly renoprotective by the reduction of albuminuria. So this is very important point. If you are having uh, renal failure, predominantly albuminuric, probably these agents are going to provide more protection. And not only this, this will stabilize the EGFR also over course of time. And another very important property is if you are giving all these agents up to EGFR 15 or less than that, it will not compromise the glucose lowering property of this agent, and this can be renoprotective as well. So retaining the glucose lowering property as well as nephroprotecting property, this is a very important a point for the GLP-1 receptor agonist. What about SGLT2 inhibitor? They are also a very important drug nowadays. They are talking. They has been talked about uh, in various conferences again and again because of the evidences which are coming up. What it does, it blocks the SGLT2 inhibitors, the SGLT2 receptors, and because of the blocking of the SGLT2 receptors, there is more and more sodium delivery in the distal tubule, and macula densa sense this sodium, and what it causes? It causes afferent arteriole constriction. So by the virtue of afferent arteriole constriction, the intraglomerular hypertension will be reduced. So again, the nephroprotective property is mainly because of reducing intraglomerular pressure. And as I have already told you, in case of GLP-1 receptor agonist also, the intraglomerular pressure is reduced. But the one difference between the SGLT2 and GLP-1 is here, this is the molecule which is only affecting the afferent arteriole tone. There is no effect on the efferent arteriole, while the GLP-1 receptor agonists, they tend to affect both afferent and efferent arteriole. And in process of this, there is more and more distal sodium delivery as well as glucose, and this will reduce weight and this will reduce HbA1c. That is the desired effect of the SGLT2 inhibitor. So with the help of SGLT2 inhibitor, there is more HbA1c reduction, weight loss, and blood pressure reduction. Not only this, the SGLT2 inhibitors are now very important drug for cardioprotection. They reduce blood pressure because of the reduced sympathetic tone. It also reduces the arterial stiffness, visceral adiposity. There will be reduction of uric acid and oxidative stress. So more and more mechanisms are being implicated for the SGLT2 inhibitor for the cardioprotection. And if you summarize all these things, if the SGLT2 inhibitor is given, it is not only reducing blood glucose, there is also cardioprotection, nephroprotection, and protective effect on the liver because of the reduction of NFLD. So this is very important part. Not only this, this act as a smart diuretics also. It reduces the interstitial edema with the help of reduction of interstitial edema. You can see why I am calling this as a smart diuretic, because the SGLT2 inhibitor, they reduce interstitial edema without decreasing the luminal volume. So luminal volume remains same, and because of this, there is hardly any reflex neurohormonal activation. So almost in all patients, there is no reflex neurohormonal activation, and patient will be benefited with the help of SGLT2 inhibitor. So with the help of SGLT2 inhibitor, if you are giving this agent, there is a favorable cardiac remodeling, and there the heart changes from disease heart to a healthy heart. Not only this, there is better utilization of glucose and free fatty acid in the failing heart. And it has been seen that if you are giving SGLT2 inhibitor, they tend to utilize, the failing heart tend to utilize more glucose and the fatty acid, and effectively the ATP generation is increased. And contrary to belief, there was more efficient utilization of glucose. The free fatty acid is utilized more, but the predominant effect is on glucose metabolism. So glucose is utilized more effectively. So probably this is not going in line with the alternative ketone fuel hypothesis. So how the SGLT2 affect the glucose metabolism? By modifying the branch chain amino acid metabolism. So the mitochondrial dysfunction is corrected, and the branch chain amino acid metabolism are favorably affected, and so cardiac insulin resistance decreases and cardiac hypertrophy is decreased. So this is a theory. What are the evidence in favor of this? If you see the integrated serum urine metabolic and the urinary metabolic study, if you are giving SGLT2 inhibitor, the urinary metabolic profile and serum metabolic profile says that there is much better utilization of branch chain amino acid and mitochondrial dysfunction is reduced. So this is a proof of the hypothesis that mitochondrial dysfunction is corrected if you are giving SGLT2 inhibitor. Not only this, if you are giving SGLT2 inhibitor, the intramyocardial calcium reduces, and because of the reduction of intramyocardial calcium, the cardiac remodeling is favorably affected. So if you combine all the effects, there are early effect and there are late effect, and the early effects are mainly hemodynamics. The long-term effects are mainly because of the change in cardiac metabolism, cardiac function, and oxygen demand, stress, and glucagon effect. So because of the glucagon, there is alternative fuel which is generated, and because of the this thing SGLT2 inhibitor, there is more and more utilization of glucose effectively in a failing heart. So this is very important. Not only this, the SGLT2 inhibitors are very good renoprotective agent. As I have already told you, the agent is mainly acting on the afferent arteriole, and if you combine with the ARBs or AC inhibitor, the effect is augmented. So very good synergy also exists between the SGLT2 inhibitor and ARBs. And here is the picture. You can see if you give SGLT2 inhibitor, the afferent arteriole tone is corrected. Not only this, if you see the branch chain amino acid metabolism and the production of the alternate uh, fuel like beta hydroxybutyrate in the S3 segment is increased. So if you are giving SGLT2 inhibitor, there is more and more utilization of beta hydroxybutyrate in a failing kidney. So it acts as an alternative energy source, and that's how it protects the kidney. So alternate fuel hypothesis holds true in case of the renoprotection, and it stabilizes the EGFR also if you are giving this agent, irrespective of the agent used like CANA, DAPA, or any SGLT2 inhibitor. So if you combine all the cardio-renoprotective effect, you can see with the help of weight loss, HbA1c reduction, blood pressure reduction, the arterial stiffness, the intraglomerular hypertension, the endothelial dysfunction, sympathetic tone, all effects are adding up, and overall there is more and more cardiorenal protection. So is there any clinical utility, and what are different limitations of combining GLP-1 receptor agonist with the SGLT2 inhibitor? According to the ACE guideline 2019, if your patient is a naive patient and presented with the cardiovascular disease and CKD patient, if you can use GLP-1 receptor agonist or SGLT2 inhibitor ahead of metformin. So this is a very important change which has occurred in recent past. And why this change has occurred? Because of the data from the UK-PDS trial, which shows that metformin is a cardioprotective agent, but it takes longer time, approximately 4 years, 5 years, to have a positive impact. While these SGLT2 inhibitor and GLP-1 receptor agonists, in case of SGLT2 inhibitor, the curve starts separating at around 4-week time, while the GLP-1 receptor agonist, the curve starts separating at the around 1.5 years. So you tend to get the effects very early. The anti-atherosclerotic property of GLP-1 receptor agonist is evident, and effect on heart failure of the SGLT2 inhibitor is a predominant action. So now in a naive patient with a cardiovascular disease and CKD patient, you can directly use this agent ahead of metformin. If already patient is receiving metformin, you can always add this agent as an add-on therapy. That's why the SGLT2 inhibitor and GLP-1 receptor agonists are being used nowadays. ahead of metformin. And what are different situations where SGLT2 inhibitor is better? If you are looking for cardiovascular protection, yes, both for GLP-1 and SGLT2, both are very good agent in this regard. But predominantly, if your patient is having multiple risk factor for the hospitalization of heart failure, then probably SGLT2 inhibitor are better agent. If you are looking for weight loss or anti-atherosclerotic property, or your patient is having eGFR less than 45 and you want glycemic control in this subgroup of patient, probably GLP-1 receptor agonists are better agent in this subgroup of patient. While the SGLT2 inhibitors, they are orally available in India. The GLP-1 receptor agonists are also now available orally in the international market. In India, it's again, it's going to available soon. So we are not currently having any experience with the oral GLP-1 receptor agonist, but very soon the oral semaglutide will be available. Then there will be more and more use of GLP-1 receptor agonist. So what are different limitation? Like if your patient is having a significant CKD, like if the eGFR is less than 30 or 25, probably the utility of the SGLT2 inhibitor in terms of sugar control is not. Okay, okay, okay. So this is the point. So the what are different action which we are looking at? So there are different positive action of these agents, like reduction in sympathetic tone and the the property. And if you combine all these agents, there are multiple action which are there. So anti-atherosclerotic property of GLP-1 receptor agonist and the lipid profile property is also there. So what are different agents action of these combining these two agents? So they, of course, they are synergistic if you are combining these two agents. What are different trials which are available in this regard? Duration 8 is the very important trial where there is a simultaneous start of the DAPA along with the exenatide. And this trial has shown that there is reduction of both HbA1c and there is a weight reduction. So in conclusion, we can say that if you are combining these two agents, there is more and more blood glucose control, and there is less adverse side effect. Another trial, which is AVARD trend trial, which dulaglutide is added to SGLT2 inhibitor, and this shows that if you are adding dulaglutide over other SGLT2 inhibitor, there is also a favorable effect, and there is less side effect. And another trial, which is SUSTAIN 9 trial, where semaglutide is added to the SGLT2 inhibitor, and it also again shows that there is a favorable effect in terms of weight reduction and HbA1c reduction, and in terms of hypoglycemia. Not only this, the real world studies also favors that if you are combining these agents, there is more and more control of the blood glucose, as well as more and more cardio protection and the renal protection. But the main point is, if you are starting these agents simultaneously, the effect is more pronounced. So probably the simultaneous start is having more favorable effect, but at the cost of increased side effect. What about the meta-analysis? The meta-analysis combining of the SGLP1 receptor agonist and SGLT2 inhibitor, it shows that there is more reduction of HbA1c, weight reduction, fasting blood glucose at the risk of increased hypoglycemia. So this is one thing. So combining all these can increase the effect, but can cause increased risk of hypoglycemia. So this is last 2-3 slides. So if you are giving the GLP-1 receptor agonist and SGLT2 inhibitor in a failing heart, probably the combination therapy of the GLP-1 receptor agonist and SGLT2 inhibitor is going to perform better than the agent alone. So if you are giving these agents, probably if you are starting SGLT2 inhibitor, always reduce the dose of insulin and reduce the dose of diuretics. So, and never forget to stop the DB4 inhibitor if you are using GLP-1 receptor agonist, and monitor for the diabetic retinopathy. So what are different important key takeaway from my presentation? First, both SGLT2 inhibitor and GLP-1 receptor agonist reduces weight, BP, and HbA1c, stabilize eGFR. Because of the early onset of the cardiorenal protective property, these agents are favorable favored as compared to the metformin alone. The GLP-1 receptor protects the heart by anti-atherosclerotic property, while SGLT2 inhibitors are preventing the heart failure. The SGLT2 inhibitors are renoprotective. The DAPA and CANA are already approved for that. The GLP-1 receptor agonists are very important renoprotective agent, mainly due to anti-proteinuric property. These effect of both SGLT2 inhibitor and GLP-1 receptor agonist are independent of weight, HbA1c, and microalbuminuria. This is very important. The effect is independent of weight, HbA1c, and microalbuminuria. The alternate fuel hypothesis holds true for SGLT2 inhibitor, while anti-inflammatory and lipid lowering property holds true for GLP-1 receptor agonist. So if you are combining these two agents, probably you will get better results. So last slide, the genitourinary infection is an important limitation in case of SGLT2 inhibitor. The BP lowering property of SGLT2 inhibitor is utilized more, and it is mainly because of decreased sympathetic tone, and it is particularly useful in case of DKD patient, while the BP weight loss property is more pronounced with the GLP-1 receptor agonist, particularly the liraglutide and other GLP-1 receptor agonists which are not crossing blood-brain barrier. So the combination of GLP-1 receptor agonist and SGLT2 inhibitor are well tolerated, and they have additive desirable effect. Probably the simultaneous start is going to produce more pronounced effect as compared to sequential start, but at the cost of increased adverse effect. The CANA and dulaglutide is the better agent for the sequential start because of their adverse GI side effect, while the liraglutide and dapagliflozin is the better tolerated if they are started simultaneously. So thank you very much for your kind and patient hearing. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer the question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mishra, Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, for explaining how 1 + 1 does equal 11. Now I'd like to open the virtual floor to questions for Dr. Mishra.
Questions are very important, and either I have just overburdened the things, or it may be that everything is explained in a nice manner. But one thing I have just want to tell you people, that the combination of these two agents like GLP-1 receptor agonist and SGLT2 inhibitor are now being used off-label in clinical practice, and it is very important to take these two drugs in clinical practice, and most of the time it is started sequentially and rather than simultaneously. But we need research in this area. We need high quality research in this area so that we can have a better idea that these are actually having additive property, and which subgroup of patient these agents should be used. So there is high time that this type of research should be initiated, and we have already started a project on this. Anybody will like to join us, we are happy to help.
So, I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes, yes.
Hi, Dr. Ashutosh. So my question to you is this: if you have someone who has diabetes and has really very mild proteinuria, would you recommend maybe just leaving them on the SGLT or the GLPs, or you would want us to make sure that we start ARBs and ACE inhibitors to for prophylactic purposes?
So that is a very good question. As I have already shown a slide, if we are using SGLT2 inhibitor for anti-proteinuric property, it is mainly acting on the afferent arteriole. So efferent arteriole is not covered. So if you want to address actually intraglomerular hypertension, so the afferent and efferent arteriole both should be addressed. So a combination of ARB and SGLT2 inhibitor is a better choice if you are using these two agents. They will act in a synergistic manner. So somebody who is already having proteinuria, the ARB should be given. And on top of that, if SGLT2 inhibitor is given, probably it will retard the process of albuminuria and there will be more nephroprotection. So combining these two agents is always a better idea, and this will give a additive effect. And if you want to use the GLP-1 receptor agonist, probably these are the agents which should be used after ARBs.
Thank you.